Hi everybody, this is Ollie Cantos here, and for this installment of the Visionary series, I'd like to teach all of you today how to collect written recommendations. For those of you who either have businesses of your own or who have careers, you all know the importance of having good recommendations that show your skill. And within the context either of online marketing or of professional development within a career context, all of us need to have good quality recommendations. The best form of recommendations are those that are unsolicited. And here I wanted to talk with you about an often unutilized or underutilized approach of collecting unsolicited statements to you about you. A lot of people may not actually have thought about this before, so I really hope that this is of help to you, whether you're building an online marketing business with us or you're working on just enhancing your own career development. And so let me just talk about this a little bit further. Whenever we email one another, there are times that people say things to us that can be really just warm and complimentary. And I mean, those statements are truly to be appreciated. But the way to really take that to the next level is to gather them and put them in to organize them into a database. And here's specifically how this is to be done. For any of you who have the Microsoft suite, it's important to use Microsoft Access in order to organize what I'm about to show you. And first of all, what you have to do is go through past emails where people have said complimentary things about you, whether it's about you as a person or it's about you within the context of a professional skill that you might happen to have. Whatever the case may be, gather as many of them as you can. And if you at first can't think of any, just go through old emails, or whether it be from your own individual personal email accounts or whether it be from your work email account if you happen to have a job. But wherever you gather them, find them. Okay? And so, oh, and by the way, in addition to email posts, if you also have, if there are things that have been said about you positively or said to you positively from people who are part of your Facebook account, then that's yet another thing to gather. Emails are good, but in addition to that, Facebook is also good, as well as if anybody says wonderful things about you within LinkedIn. And I'm going to get into all of that both here and in subsequent videos, so that way you can be assured that we'll be going through these items in detail. But first, let's just stick with email for now, just for the purposes of staying focused. If you, or as you gather your emails of people who have said positive things to you, about you, and especially to the extent that these comments of theirs are unsolicited, that is what is the most powerful. When it comes to this particular statement gathering approach that I'm describing today, it's just really important that you not ask people to recommend you or to say anything about you. It's very, very important. Okay? And I'll explain why as we go farther in this, as I further discuss this process. But the next thing is, after you have gathered up all of the emails, or as many emails as you can, where there have been positive statements made to you about you, either within a personal context of how wonderful of a person they say you are, or if they say something that complements a professional skill that you have, whatever that you happen to, whatever it happens to be. The next step is to put together a Microsoft Access database file, and you could use the setup wizard within Microsoft Access, but I'm going to give you specific fields now, so that way you should take this information down, or if you're sitting at your computer, which you likely are, open your Microsoft Access program and start writing these fields down and including these as your chosen fields to include in your brand new database file. The first thing is you need to have the first field that's already there is record number. And that's important because that keeps track of the literal number of different quotes that you're collecting in your database. The second thing is this, and I'm just going to name a succession of fields now. So if I go too fast, just feel free to rewind this video a little bit. But here are some additional fields after record number. First name, last name, organization name, subdivision, and the subdivision could be if it's a department or some part of a broader agency. Organization type, which would be governmental, nonprofit, or for-profit. Or if you want, you can create your own separate categories, but you should categorize everybody within the context of what capacity they were writing to you from. Okay? And you also, then other fields include city, state, and if you happen to have an international set of contacts, country. And then the next thing you would the next field would be scope, and scope would be local, state, or provincial, depending on what country you're in, or federal, national, or international. Those are the only four things that you would write within scope, and you need to stick with those four so that later, when you alphabetize and group within that field, you'll be able to divide, look at everything by scope. Well, I'll talk about that later, about why it's important to be really precise with all this. So in addition to scope, the next thing would be the nature of the complement. And that the nature, you'd have to come up with your own categories, but as you're putting information into the system, think about what the complement is about. If it happens to be about you being having given a speech for a speaking engagement, then you would call it speaking engagement feedback. If it happens to be your writing ability, then call it writing ability. If it happens to be the way in which you're such a good networker, then you would call it networking ability, and so forth. But whatever it is, the categories will emerge as you continue to enter information, and you can always go back and revise them, but try the best you can to categorize the various quotes or to put the different quotes into different categories, and try to limit the number of categories that you have so that you don't have 57 categories for 57 different quotes that you have in your database. Okay, because the key here is to organize all of these. Okay, and then the last thing that the last field, or the second to the last field that you would have in your database is the actual quote of what the person said. And here you would literally cut and paste the email into the field, and doing that, if there are parts of the email that aren't really relevant for what you're gathering, then what you do is you would show an omission by 3 dots. It's called an ellipsis. The 3 dots together is called an ellipsis. So let's say the email talks about a bunch of things, but for your purposes you only wanted one section. But then there was some, it's sort of, they say complementary things sort of throughout the email, but not everything is relevant. So you just indicate omissions within each paragraph by an ellipsis. And if there happen to be spelling errors, then you can make the spelling error corrections. Let's say if there wasn't a capitalization where there should have been, or there was a misspelling, then what you can do is you can correct the email. But what you do when you correct the email is you put that in an open bracket, then with the correction, and then a closed bracket. That way, when they see that, that'll be an indication that you've made the correction. The reason why that's important is because if you receive email that happen to have a few typographical errors, and if you include this in your database, you don't want people to think that you were careless in typing what the quote said. But at the same time, you want to preserve the integrity of what the person originally said. The last field that you would include in the Microsoft Access database is notes. And here, that would be more for yourself, just for your own reference. You just include notes just to remind yourself about the person, or what was the context of the quote, that sort of thing. Oh my gosh, of all the fields that I listed, I'm sorry, one thing that I neglected to mention was date. You have to include, and that should be after the name, like first name, last name, date. Or as another alternative, you can put the date right after the record number. Actually, as I think about it, my database is set up where I put the date right after the record number. So it's record number, date, first name, last name, etc. Like we talked about, like I talked about earlier. So then, now let's assume that you get you have everything entered in terms of your database, and you have all the quotes. Now the question is, what do you do with them? What you do with those quotes is that now you can organize them. Because you have everybody's name in the system, you could alphabetize by name, and if you do that, you can see how many people are in your database who said complimentary things about you, and you can also see how many times each person said complimentary things about you. And in order for the tracking to work on this, when you do your database, you have to be exactly precise with the name. So let's say, for example, the person's name is just to come up with just some random name, John W. Doe, D-O-E, let's just say, okay? So if you record the person's name as John Doe, then the next time John Doe's name comes up, don't record it as John W. Doe, as an example, okay? Because then that will be listed as as everything is organized, it'll be actually categorized differently, and it'll appear as if it's a separate person. So it's important that if you decide to include middle initials, do it consistently for that person. Or if you decide not to include middle initials, then don't include middle initials for that person. Whatever it might happen to be. Okay? So but just be consistent and be mindful as to what you're doing within all of this. Okay? So let's say, in addition to being able to see the number of people and how many times each person gives you says something complimentary to you, you can also go to a different field and organize by scope. So if you needed quotations from people who've done things at a national level, then you would alphabetize the scope field, so everybody who's national, who you categorize as national, will actually be clustered together. And then that way you'll only have the quotes from people who've done things at a national level. Or let's say it's international, then the same thing. Or if it's local or state or provincial, it's the same thing. See, so if you can just imagine, you can see how you can just organize all of these. And let's say regardless of what scope a person has, you want all of the quotes to come up when you're organizing your database. You want all the quotes to come up that talk about your writing ability, let's say, or your marketing ability, whatever it happens to be, okay? If you do that, then provided that you categorized everybody consistently so that way everything can alphabetize properly, then everybody who falls into a specific skill set will be clustered together. So then, right there at your fingertips, you then have everybody who's talked about you within a specific facet of your skills. Or, let's say, using another example, let's say, regardless of what the nature is, you want to show people that you have received a lot of compliments lately. So then you could organize by date. And then when you organize by date, you'll be able to just decide which quotes to include. And here's the specific reason why I suggest strongly that you use Microsoft Access. The reason why is because when you use Microsoft Access, you can then copy and paste your data fields into a Microsoft Word document, and when you do, all of the categories that you listed when you cut and paste, it'll all cut and paste, and whenever items move to a new page, Microsoft Word will automatically name the columns on the next subsequent page or pages, so that every page is neatly shown to have all of the headers that signify the different fields. And when you're laying this out, you can literally drag and adjust the lines between each field so that each field will literally be laid out the way you want. So let's say, for example, if you have a state field, then obviously that doesn't take up as much room as a quotations field. So then you can narrow the state field. And you could also create charts, and you could create headings and subheadings that will organize all of your quotes into a manageable format. So it's just really a lot of fun when you get this together. And the best thing is, as you do it consistently, you'll be able to see how these gather up very quickly. The other thing to keep in mind is that, as you know, we just have been talking about emails. It's important for you to keep copies of the original emails from which these came, so that if anybody who you want to see them, if anybody asks about the context of these emails, then you'll have copies available for reference. Just keep in mind that if there's confidential content in those emails, that you should make sure to redact the content, so that way there isn't any confidential information that's unnecessarily disclosed without appropriate permission. So it's something that's really important to keep in mind. The other thing too is, in addition to emails, you can do this very same approach with what people have said to you on Facebook. And there, what you can do is you can do a Control F12 to print the screen, or a Control print screen, actually. And then what happens is the screen ends up being printed, and then when you have a screenshot of the page, you can then save that in a file, so that if anybody wants to see the actual evidence of a specific quote that has been given to you because of what somebody said about you or to you on Facebook, then you'll have that readily readily available. The same is true with LinkedIn. Although LinkedIn, as any of you who may know who use LinkedIn, you can actually solicit recommendations on LinkedIn, and that has powerful value too if you ask people to recommend you, and you can offer to recommend them as well. It's a powerful networking tool, but the difference in dynamic between the recommendations feature on LinkedIn and the approach that I've been laying out in this Visionary Series video is that when you do this unsolicited, it actually can be more powerful because you're not asking somebody to be complimentary toward you or to say things regarding your ability, but instead it's just happening in the normal course of communication with the person. And that is extremely powerful because you can say that all of the quotes that have been listed that have been listed were actually unsolicited, and that just says a lot about you as a person. Gosh, the other thing that I just realized I needed to include was, in addition to the other fields, I'm sorry for not including this earlier, but is job title of the person that said the complimentary thing toward you. And when you include the job title, you mention the job title of the person with the title of the job that the person had at the time that the quotation was made. You're going to find over time that the recommendation, that the quotations that people give you will be done while a person has one capacity, but if you're in touch with the person long enough, they'll end up going into a different job. But it's important to for the integrity of the timeline that you retain the original job title that they had when they made their remark complimentary toward you. If you want separately to say that the person now has an elevated title or a different title at a different position, you can do that, but keep the database preserved. Because when you keep the database preserved, you'll be in the absolute best position to show how people interacted with you. So you could say, oh yeah, this person had this specific job title, but now they are vice president of this and this, But then, assuming you've been good at keeping up with the relationship with people, then their job change, especially if it's a promotion, can actually elevate the credibility that the person has, even though the person first made the comment to you when that person was in a lower position. So it's extremely powerful, and everything that I'm telling you is actually what I myself do, and I literally, because of this database approach, I have literally been able to gather hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of quotes from people, and I've actually, as a future part of this whole project, I actually need to incorporate thank you notes sent by mail, as well as thank you letters sent by standard mail. That's becoming less and less of an occurrence because people tend to do things electronically these days, but I still get them from time to time. And with those, you could still convert them electronically by just scanning them and then creating a file where you can keep them. And whenever you create electronic files, here's something that's important for you to remember too. Let's say if you take material and you scan it, or if you take a screenshot of Facebook or LinkedIn and you scan those, when you do that, it's important to name the file in a way that stays organized. And the way that you do that is that you start off the file with the date, but the way you do it is you mention the year first, and then the month, and then the day. So you do 4-digit year or 3-digit year, depending on what you want. I like 3-digit, but you could do 3 or 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, hyphen, and then whatever the thing is. That way you keep everything organized by date. It's true that when you save a file, it does have the date that something was saved. However, when you use this approach that I just described, then you can place in the file name the date that the quote was given. So that, let's say you're just doing this process now, and you're gathering up a quote, or you're scanning in or taking a screenshot of a quote that happened 3 years ago, then you could at least date it from 3 years ago, even though the time of the saving of the document is the present time. So that's yet another, that's sort of like ninja level stuff. But anyway, all these approaches are critical. So the question is, what do you do with all of this? When you have this database and you have all this versatility to organize by scope or name or subject matter or whatever, or whatever field you want, or if you want to organize by state to show that you have things happening in all 50 states, whatever it is that you want to do, it enables you to do better with. You can then create a supplementary document that you could submit with job applications, or you can cut and paste them onto your website. That helps enhance your online reputation. And when you do that, write the disclaimer there that says that these quotes were given unsolicited, and that you're basically pulling from what people have said to you about you, and it's just yet another way to leverage the positive things that people have said. So the action assignments for today with this installment of the Visionary series is for you to go and create a database as I've described. And I apologize for having sort of been all over the place with the fields, but it's just that there's so many fields that are in this thing. But if you just put together the database, or if you want, you could get in touch with me if you're a part of my business and you get in touch with me. I will teach you personally how to do this. But if you're not, then just go back and feel free to go through and listen to the video again, so you'll have all the various fields that you need. But in any case, my action assignment for you today is for you to go and to create a Microsoft Access database that includes quotes from people who've said positive things to you about you in the past, and things that have happened in the course of just regular communication, and specifically things where times when people have said things to you where you did not ask them to say complimentary things to you. They just happened to say it in the course of broader email communications. And the second thing is, I'd like for you to click on the link below and to get involved with joining my business and getting further information about building an online successful marketing business. The skills that you gain from here are absolutely invaluable, whether you use it for yourself or whether you use it to build a strong and profitable business, or both. So I hope that this content is of help to you, and I look forward to getting to work with you and to support you in whatever way I can. Please feel free to share and like this video. Send this video all over the doggone place. I'd really appreciate that, and maybe this could help people with getting organized, with advancing their, preparing to advance their careers, or to build their reputations online, or to gather quotes that they can use for their own marketing purposes. Whatever your goals happen to be, I hope that this is of direct help to you, and that this has added real content to your lives. So click on the button below right now, get involved with me, and looking forward to getting to know you and to continuing to add value to your life. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you for watching.